Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. It started with a casual tone, almost too casual for what she was saying. She was standing by the sink, her coffee mug cradled in her hands like she was about to comment on the weather. No tears, no shouting, no pacing, just calm, focused, practiced. "I'm going to spend a few days with Josh," she said, like she was reading off a grocery list. "It's not definite. I just need time away to see how I feel. Then I'll decide. Then she'll decide. Not, we. Not even, I'm sorry. Just a declaration, like a landlord giving notice before vacating." I sat there at the kitchen table with a half-buttered piece of toast in my hand, still warm. I don't think I blinked. Her words didn't register right away because my brain refused to translate them into meaning. She said it so softly I almost asked her to repeat it, but part of me knew if I did, it would become real. So I didn't say anything. Instead, I nodded. And that must have rattled her, because she tilted her head like she was trying to read me. "Did you hear me?" I kept my voice even. "Yeah. Nothing else?" Her eyebrows rose slightly, like she was expecting a fight, or tears, or maybe some kind of masculine meltdown. When she didn't get one, her posture tightened, just a hair. She took another sip of her coffee. I could tell she'd rehearsed this moment, imagined me groveling or yelling, something dramatic that would validate her new self-image as a woman seeking clarity. "I'm not leaving for good," she said, as if that helped. "This is just space. So I can think. So we both can. You deserve honesty, and I need perspective." Perspective. She was using all the right buzzwords. I'd heard them before. Usually in self-help articles or on podcasts hosted by divorcees-turned-gurus. Still, I didn't react. I finished buttering my toast. She stared at me like I was malfunctioning. "Josh and I are just trying to see if what we have is real. If it's not, I'll come back and we can talk seriously about us. No pressure. Just options." She kept calling it a trial. Like a software demo. Like I was supposed to sit here on pause while she explored her free trial of infidelity, with the right to cancel any time before billing. I knew Josh. Not well, but enough. He was one of those men who seemed charming in that easy, spineless kind of way. The type who always had a convenient story about how misunderstood he was. The type women like my wife think they can fix. The type who always called me bro like it was some kind of apology. My wife looked down at the floor. I think she expected anger by now. But I wasn't angry. Not then. Not because I was okay with it, but because the moment she said it, this trial thing, my role in our marriage shifted. She thought I was the one being left behind to wait for a verdict. What she didn't realize was that she'd just handed me the gavel. I stood up and rinsed my plate. "When are you leaving?" She blinked, surprised by the normalcy of my question. "Tomorrow morning." I already packed a few things, just a small bag. Of course she had. She'd been packing this plan for weeks, maybe longer. All those late-night walks. The sudden return of yoga pants. The way her phone stayed face down on the counter. "I'll take the car," she added quickly. "You can use the other one." "You're not flying?" "No, just the drive's only a couple hours." She hesitated. "We're not doing anything crazy. It's not like some romantic getaway." I didn't even flinch. "I'll text you when I get there." I nodded. She hovered for another few seconds, hoping maybe I'd break. But I didn't. She eventually stepped away with a quiet, frustrated sigh, as if I was the one being unreasonable now. Later that night, while she was in the shower, I stood in the hallway and stared at the closed bathroom door. The steam curled from beneath it like smoke from a fire I wasn't allowed to put out. Then I walked into the guest room, opened her bag. I didn't rifle through it. I didn't take anything out. I just added one thing, a small laminated note I'd kept from our first anniversary. She'd written it in lipstick on a napkin at the restaurant where we ate. I'd found it in my coat pocket 2 days later and sealed it in plastic like some teenager. It read, "You're my home." I slipped it into her makeup pouch and zipped it shut. If she noticed it, she'd feel something. And if she didn't, well, that told me everything I needed to know. Because she thought this was her decision. But I'd already decided. And I had no intention of letting her come back home to me like nothing had happened. She just didn't know it yet. She left at 7:42 the next morning. Didn't even finish her coffee. The suitcase was in the trunk, her hair curled but slightly rushed. I noticed because she always curled it when she wanted to feel desirable, but didn't have time to let it set right. Like she wasn't sure if she was escaping or selling herself. The outfit wasn't extravagant, just slightly more considered. Effort dressed up to look effortless. I walked her to the car in silence. She looked at me once, maybe twice, trying to find some sign of bitterness or desperation. I gave her neither. Instead, I opened the door, kissed her on the cheek, and said, "Good luck." Her brows twitched, just enough to register confusion. "Thanks," she said, almost defensive. "It's not goodbye." "No, not goodbye. Just betrayal, wrapped in neutral language." She pulled out of the driveway without a wave. The moment her car turned the corner, I went inside and locked the front door, not because I thought she'd come back, but because I was done leaving it open for someone who had walked out. Then I turned to the computer. Her passwords were the same across every platform. They always had been. I'd never used them before because I never thought I'd need to. But now is different. The first thing I opened was her shared photo cloud. She hadn't updated her privacy settings since the last software update. It took all of 2 minutes to sync it to my desktop. The photos were mostly what you'd expect: screenshots of memes, new yoga poses, a few selfies. Then one from last week, timestamped 3:18 p.m., middle of a workday. It was her, in the mirror of a hotel bathroom, with her blouse half unbuttoned and lipstick in her hand. Not risque, not explicit, but intimate, carefully crafted for someone who wasn't me. Then came the messages. I wasn't even looking to invade. Not really. I was gathering facts. Observing, like a scientist who already suspects what he'll find under the microscope. Josh, counting the hours. Tell me again how I'm better than him. Her, stop. You'll make me cancel dinner and come over early. Josh, you should. Her, you're bad for me. But God, I'm tired of being good. And just like that, the last little fragment of denial cracked. It wasn't a trial. It was a preview. She just hadn't realized the other party, me, wasn't going to be waiting when she came back to negotiate. I didn't reply to any of it. Didn't forward, didn't print. I didn't need to. Because I had already started laying the groundwork weeks ago, when the late-night texting began and the intimacy vanished like someone dimmed a light. Back then, I didn't know what it was, not for sure. But I started acting like a man who might soon be alone. I'd reached out to 2 attorneys, one a contact from college, another recommended by a guy at the gym who went through a brutal divorce and came out clean. Both had the same advice: move like it's already over. If she comes back, you'll either be ready or too far ahead to care. So I did. Separated the bank accounts last month. Changed the beneficiary on my life insurance. Shifted the property tax notifications to a P.O. box she didn't know about. I even called our utility providers and removed her access while leaving her name on the bills. Just in case. I wasn't just reacting. I was preparing. But the more I uncovered, the more interesting it became. Because Josh? He wasn't some random fling. He wasn't a new coworker or an old college flame. He was someone I knew. Not well, not intimately. But I remembered the name. A guy I once had a near falling out with after he made an offhand joke about my wife back when we first got married. He worked in logistics. Used to date one of her friends. The type of man who posts gym selfies with cryptic captions about loyalty while cheating on every woman he dates. And now he was offering her a new life, built on the wreckage of mine. I didn't feel rage. What I felt was cleaner. Sharper. Like a blade pulled from a sheath after years of dust. Josh didn't realize what kind of man I'd become after being taken for granted for this long. And my wife, no, Sarah, was still operating like I was the same man she left in the kitchen yesterday. That was her mistake. Because I wasn't waiting anymore. I was calculating. And by the time she came back from her trial, her old life would already be on trial. She just didn't know the verdict was already written. By the second night, she stopped texting. Not even a check-in to ask if I was okay. I figured she'd drop the performance once she realized I wasn't playing the role of heartbroken husband. She didn't want me, she wanted me suffering. Quiet, compliant, and ready to fight for her after she came back from her fantasy weekend with the man who'd been whispering promises in her ear. But I wasn't suffering. I was building. That morning, I visited my lawyer in person. We met in a downtown office that smelled of polished wood and old money. The kind of place designed to intimidate. He handed me a packet with a quiet smirk. Separation of assets. Pre-filed. All we need is your go-ahead. Include the house, I said. He raised a brow. You sure? Positive. Let her have it. It's not a home anymore. He nodded and slid a second envelope across the desk. You mentioned she's been using your card for personal expenses. This'll shut it down. Also this, he flipped open a small folder, is a preliminary custody outline. Not binding, but enough to start leverage if you decide to file. We didn't have kids, but I appreciated the thoroughness. Appreciate you, Darren. He grinned. Just returning the favor. You remember what she said about my wife back in 16? I froze, then smirked. Didn't realize you held on to that. She called her a step 4 drone with Botox cheeks. He shrugged. Let's just say I don't mind helping this end smoothly for you. And there it was, the first betrayal I hadn't expected. Not from Darren, but from Sarah. Her judgment, her arrogance, the way she casually insulted people she thought beneath her. She had been burning bridges long before she realized she needed them. On my way home, I drove past her sister's condo. Not intentionally, more of a curiosity. And wouldn't you know it, Josh's car was parked outside. Not a hotel, not some lakefront Airbnb. Her sister's place, which explained the sudden coolness in Rachel's tone over the last few months. The half-smiles at family dinners, the way she'd stopped calling. I'd assumed it was marital drift. But now, I saw it differently. Rachel knew. Maybe not from the beginning, but definitely recently. She'd been covering for her. Probably thought she was supporting a woman's journey, or whatever buzzword Sarah had fed her. But what it really was a conspiracy of silence. They didn't just leave me out. They made me the fool in a story everyone else had already read. And that's when the second piece of the plan came together. That night, I sent Rachel a text. Simple. Measured. Saw Josh's car. Hope you enjoy being part of Sarah's decision. Just remember, decisions have consequences. She didn't reply. Didn't have to. Because I knew she'd tell Sarah. And Sarah, in her fantasy world of no accountability, wouldn't see it for what it was, a warning. She'd see it as an invitation. To come back. To explain. To pitch her usual guilt-ridden monologue. I was counting on it. In the meantime, I went home and pulled the hard drive from our security system. She never knew the hallway camera had audio. I'd disabled it years ago, or at least that's what she thought. The night before she left, when she was packing in the guest room, she'd been on the phone. I hadn't meant to spy. I was just updating the firmware when I saw the timestamp match her conversation. I hit play. Sarah, he'll wait. He always does. He can't do anger. Not really. Josh, through speaker, so? We don't need to rush then? Sarah, no. I'll take a few days. Then when I come back, I'll confess and ask for time. He'll be too stunned to say no. Josh, what if he doesn't want to stay? Sarah, please. He's a domestic dog. All bark, no bite. I watched the screen flicker to black. And then I smiled. Not because I was happy, because she had no idea what kind of man she'd actually married. The next morning, I left town. Didn't tell her. Didn't cancel anything. I just took 3 vacation days and checked into a quiet hotel 2 hours away. No calls. No texts. Just time to think. Let her come home to a cold, empty house. Let her pace the halls, wondering why her leash wasn't still around my neck. I didn't leave her a note. Only a single change. On the kitchen island, where I always kept the spare key bowl, I left hers and took mine. And taped to the wall above it, I printed out a screenshot from her cloud account. Her in the hotel mirror. Half-button blouse. Lipstick in hand. Nothing crude. Just evidence. No accusations. No context. Just a timestamp and an image she thought no one would ever see. Let her feel what it's like to be watched. To be understood. Because soon, she was coming back. And the game she thought she controlled was about to turn inside out. She came back on a Tuesday. Not a Sunday night full of tension and rain like some tragic movie scene. No tears in the driveway. No suitcase dramatically dropped at the door. Just Tuesday. Late morning. Like she was coming home from the grocery store. I got the first text at 11:13. Hey, I'm back. I'd like to talk when you get a minute. No, I missed you. No, I'm sorry. Just that cold, deliberate calm. The kind people use when they're trying to steer a narrative. At 11:19. The house feels weirdly empty. Are you out running errands or something? I smiled. Not because I was amused, but because the tone had shifted so fast. She'd been back less than 15 minutes and was already reaching for control. At 12:02. Why is your car not in the garage? And where's your office laptop? There it was, real confusion. That moment when the chessboard looked different than the one she'd rehearsed her moves on. But she still didn't get it. She thought I was gone for coffee. What she didn't realize is, I'd left with intention. Then, 12:13. Why would you do this? This is a violation. I trusted you not to. She had found the photo. The one I left on the kitchen island. The one from her cloud, mirror selfie, lipstick in hand, blouse halfway open. Nothing vulgar. Just enough. just enough to let her know I'd seen behind the curtain she thought she controlled. But even now, with the evidence sitting in her hand, she couldn't admit it. She was more upset that I had found it than that she'd taken it. That's when I powered off my phone. I let her stew in it. I wanted her to have that silence, that gap between action and consequence. Let her start to spiral. Let her feel that unbearable itch of not knowing how I'd respond, of not controlling how I'd respond. When I turned my phone back on that evening, there were 5 missed calls and 2 voicemails. One stood out. Her voice was soft, strained, not broken, calculated. Look, I didn't know how to handle this. I was confused. I know how it looks, but it wasn't about choosing someone else. I needed to understand myself before I could fix us. Please don't throw everything away because of one bad decision. One bad decision. They always say that, don't they? As if cheating was like buying the wrong brand of cereal. As if she hadn't coordinated it, lied about it, planned it down to the fake therapy schedule. She said it wasn't about choosing someone else. But it was. And not just Josh. She chose herself. She chose the fantasy of what she thought she deserved over the reality of what she had. And I think that's what stung the most. Not that she left, but that she assumed I'd still be there when she came back. I didn't reply that night. And I didn't go home either. I stayed exactly where I was 2 hours away, in a hotel that smelled like clean linen and disconnection. And the longer I was away, the clearer it all became. Not just what she'd done, but what I wouldn't do anymore. I wouldn't be waiting at the door like a loyal fool while she sorted out which man gave her more butterflies. When I finally returned the next morning, the house was quiet. Her car was gone, but she had been there. The kitchen lights were on. Her coat was on the chair. Her perfume still lingered in the air. But she was gone again, probably off to consult with Rachel or pace her lover's apartment, wondering why her reentry didn't go as planned. I left one text. Just one. You took your trial. I made my decision. That was it. And I meant it. Later that night, there was a knock at the door. I knew it was her before I even checked. I watched through the peephole as she stood there, her phone in one hand, jacket pulled tightly around her like she was cold, or maybe just unprepared. She didn't call out. She just stood there for a while, shifting her weight, waiting for the door to open. It never did. And I never moved. Because in that moment, I understood something she hadn't figured out yet. She was still deciding if she wanted me. But I'd already decided I didn't want her. She never did come back after that night. Not really. Oh, she tried, but the door had already closed. Not just the physical one she stood outside of that evening, but something deeper. Something she'd spent too long pretending she could walk in and out of like a revolving hotel suite. And it wasn't rage that kept me from opening it. It was clarity. She texted once more, a few days later. Not even a message, really, just a single word. Please. No context. No explanation. Just that fragile little plea that assumed we were still tethered. I stared at it for a while, thumb hovering above the screen. Then I archived the conversation and deleted the thread. Not as revenge. Just release. And just like that, it was over. But closure doesn't arrive with dramatic fireworks. It sneaks in quietly when the need to prove something fades. When you stop writing speeches in your head. When you pass your old wedding photo and don't feel a stab in your chest, just a nod to a different version of yourself. One who hadn't yet learned that loving someone doesn't mean they'll love you back the same way. A week later, I got a call from Rachel. She didn't even pretend it was casual. Her voice was sharp, defensive. She's falling apart, you know. She's not eating. She thinks you're punishing her. I let that sit a second. I'm not punishing her. I'm just finished. Are you really? Or are you just trying to win? That made me laugh. Quiet, tired. Rachel, she left. I just chose not to be here when she came back. She started to reply, then stopped. I could hear her exhale. You blindsided her, she finally muttered. She thought you'd wait. Yeah, that's the problem. I hung up. That was the last time I spoke to either of them. The next month, I filed the divorce papers. I didn't wait for her approval. I didn't consult her timing. I just did it. The same way she packed her bag and left that morning without asking if I was ready to be left. There were no fiery court battles. No teary final pleas. Once she realized I wasn't bluffing, wasn't performing, she stopped pushing. She signed the papers in silence. A few mutual friends tried to stay neutral, but neutrality isn't sustainable when truth starts to ripple. People asked questions. Why had she left? Who was Josh? Was the trial separation just code for something else? Eventually the story got out. It always does. And when it did, it didn't come from me. It came from Josh. Apparently, the fantasy unraveled fast. A man who encourages a woman to cheat on her husband doesn't suddenly transform into a model partner when she's standing at his door with a suitcase and expectations. 3 weeks after she moved in with him, she moved out. He'd started pulling away, nights out with friends, a few boundaries about space and time. She found his phone unlocked once and saw a message from another woman that said, "She's not still living with you, right?" That's when her perfect little second life began to crumble. And it wasn't because of me. I was already gone. I'd sold the house. Quietly. Paid the penalty to break the mortgage and moved out while she was too busy sorting her romantic chaos to notice. I left most of the furniture. Took only what mattered. My tools, my guitars, the books I'd actually read. I bought a small place near the coast. 2 bedrooms, nothing fancy. But when I open the windows, I hear goals instead of excuses. When I walk through the front door, it smells like coffee and wood polish, not the perfume of someone who lied to my face for months. I didn't tell anyone for a while. But eventually, people figured it out. I showed up in photos smiling again. I lost weight. Grew a little facial hair. Someone on social media joked that I looked 10 years younger, like I'd been on vacation. They didn't know I'd just finally come home. To myself. And Sarah? I don't know where she is now. Sometimes I think about that photo I left her, the lipstick one. I wonder if she kept it, wondering what it meant, what I wanted her to feel. But the truth is, I didn't want her to feel anything. I just wanted her to understand. She wasn't deciding between 2 men. She was deciding whether she could abandon someone and expect him to still wait at the door. And while she hesitated, I made the decision for both of us. And I never looked back.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.